Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another update here from Shenzhen, China. Today is the 10th of February. I've had a couple of commenters asking me to give a report on the weather here in Shenzhen. I'm not quite sure why, but here goes. So today it's 16 degrees and it's cloudy here in Shenzhen. Okay, so to the numbers for today. So cases inside China are 40,547 confirmed cases, 28,942 suspected cases, 909 deaths, and 3,283 recovered cases. As been the case for the last few days, Hubei province still has a majority of the confirmed cases, and that's run at 73% of the total today. 3 other provinces have more than 1,000 cases. These provinces are Guangdong with 1,151, Zhejiang with 1,092, and Henan with 1,073. I've got another interesting graphic to show you a little bit later on. That shows you the travel numbers of people out of Wuhan and how it correlates with the sort of number of cases in other provinces around China. So keep watching for that a little bit later. Globally, there are now 312 cases, 1 death and 29 recoveries. I'll put a couple of graphs on the screen. They contain data from up to the 9th of February. But you can see every day that cases are still increasing at quite a rate. However, as you can also see, the recovery rate is increasing quite quickly, which is good news. Right, so I want to talk about the numbers. We're getting a lot of commenters suggesting that the numbers I'm using are not accurate. First of all, I'm using the official numbers, and these are the numbers that are also put out by the WHO, and also the numbers that are used by the Johns Hopkins Institution. And personally, I think it's better to be using these numbers than numbers that are either rumours or speculation or computer monitoring. Now, in my opinion, I think the numbers in Hubei province are which is where Wuhan is, which is the centre of the outbreak. I think these are probably not correct at all, as they have so many cases to deal with, and it takes time to test people and it takes time to process people. So my sort of thoughts on that is they're just not able to keep up with the the amount of people that have got the virus. Also, it obviously that there might be many carriers of the virus that are not showing any symptoms at all. So again, it's very difficult to sort of get accurate numbers. Even confirmed cases, a confirmed case needs to be a case that's been a person that's been tested and confirmed to have the virus. So what I understand is all the figures that are being collected and published are figures that are from the individual hospitals, and they're all collated together per province, and then they are published. And I think this is the only way it can really be done, with any accuracy whatsoever. But I do think that other provinces within China are giving out accurate numbers, as they are not anywhere near as snowed under with cases, and I think they're far more able to deal with a number of cases in those other provinces at the moment. So I don't have any reason to believe that those would be false numbers. I think a big unknown here is the number of suspected cases, because it's almost impossible to get figures on this for a number of reasons. One that I'll mention, that is, some people don't even show signs. There might be people who have some signs but don't go to the hospital and stay at home. There might be other people that have very mild symptoms and then recover without even really knowing they've had the virus. So there's many reasons why you know, you can't get accurate numbers on suspected cases. So right now, social media is full of rumour and speculation about people collapsing, bodies in vans, crematoriums working 24 hours a day to burn all the bodies, etc, etc. And many of these videos are put onto social media and have no context whatsoever. You know, there's many times there's no date on them. There's no accurate information of where the location is. And in my opinion, it's pretty irresponsible to be, you know, spreading this kind of information around social media. But I really want to try and put some things into context here. So if you look at just as a comparison, in 2018, the UK has a similar population size to that of the Hubei province. There were 616,014 deaths recorded. So that's an average of 1,687 deaths per day. And in 2019, the death rate in China was 7.26 people per 1,000 people of the population. So let's say Wuhan has the average death rate in China. Now, Wuhan has 11 million people. And it's estimated that 5 million of those people left the city over the Chinese New Year, which means that leaves 7 million in the city. And if you sort of look at the average death rate of 7 million people over a year, that would equate to about 140 people dying each day. And if you then expand that to the sort of wider Hubei province, that will be about 1,200 people per day. You know, add to that 80 or 90 additional deaths per day from this virus, and it's quite easy to see how there could be pictures of multiple bodies in a vehicle, and how that crematoriums would be, you know, relatively busy. I really can't understand why there's so much discussion, especially from people who are not even here in China, about the accuracy of the numbers here. Everybody can see the data from a number of countries and consider that data too, and draw, you know, you really need to draw your own conclusions. I mean, here in China, a majority of people, Chinese people and the Chinese authorities, are concentrating on stopping the spread of the virus, and they are trialing different drugs in treating the virus to see which is the most effective in order to try and bring down the number of critical cases and the number of deaths. Also, the WHO have announced that they are sending an advanced team to China, and more will follow here shortly. And I think once the team is set up here, I suspect they will also have some verification of the numbers. But I still guess that won't be good enough for some people. Anyway, moving on. Here are the graphics I spoke about earlier. So the first one shows the distribution of people who travel from Wuhan to other parts of China before the city was quarantined. And just before I continue, I just need to point out that the majority of the 5 million people who did leave Wuhan before the city was quarantined were not leaving because they thought the city was going to be put under quarantine. They were leaving because they were going to other family members, other cities, other provinces for Chinese New Year. Now, because there's such a lot of travel at Chinese New Year, it's really difficult to get trains and flights because they're all fully booked. So the sort of exodus of people starts probably 2 to 3 weeks before the actual holiday. Yeah, a number of people are suggesting that the city should have been shut down much earlier, But I think, you know, I think what you have to realise is that the first cases of the outbreak were still under investigation at that point. You know, you can't go closing down a city with 11 million people on a handful of cases and no conclusion from an investigation. So what I actually happened is once they'd confirmed that this was a new virus, and once they confirmed that it had person-to-person transmission, I think they then quarantined the city pretty quickly. You know, so I think, you know, it's unfair to say that they should have shut the city down earlier, because they just didn't have the information at that point to warrant taking that decision. So from the graph, we can see that the people travelling from Wuhan travel to the following places. So 70% of those people travel from Wuhan to other areas in Hubei province. And this goes some way to explaining why there are so many cases currently in that province. 14% went to neighbouring provinces of Henan, Hunan, Anhui and Jiangxi. And 2% went to Guangdong. The remaining 14% fanned out all over other remaining provinces across China. The top cities outside of Hubei province that people from Wuhan travelled to were Chongqing, Beijing and Shanghai. And as you can see from this next map of the outbreaks in various provinces, it mimics the outbreak of the people that travelled from Wuhan to those provinces and the spread of the virus in those corresponding provinces, with obviously cities inside Hubei showing the most cases. The data for these graphs is collected by Baidu, which is the equivalent of Google, and it's collected from mobile phone data based on 120 billion daily location data points. The data also shows a surge of people leaving Wuhan in the 3 days before the city was quarantined, which you know, coincides with the beginning of the Chinese New Year holiday. Researchers have said this data, along with airline flight data from Wuhan, is really crucial in helping them predict where the virus will spread most and allow authorities around the world to allocate resources better. Historical data shows that travel out of Wuhan starts to ramp up approximately 3 weeks before the start of Chinese New Year. And obviously at that point there was no conclusion to any investigation that was going on into the virus at all. As for international travel destinations from high-risk Chinese cities over the Lunar New Year, top destinations in order are Thailand, Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, the United States, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam and Australia. Again, this tallies pretty closely with the number of cases we're seeing in those respective countries. However, Thailand is an interesting one, as research has suggested that the number of cases that have reported in or being reported in Thailand are somewhat lower than models and predictions would suggest. As the cases are low compared to the number of travellers from those high-risk cities travel to Thailand. There are also many travellers to African countries, and this poses quite a big risk, as there's many African countries that really don't have the healthcare infrastructure to deal with an outbreak of this type. And today Pakistan have reported a number of suspected cases. That is also quite worrying, as Pakistan are really not equipped to deal with an outbreak of this type either. Pakistan currently has around 800 students in Wuhan, and their government have at this point in time refused to evacuate those students out of Wuhan, due to the fact that they've said they really just don't have the facilities to quarantine those people when they arrive back in Pakistan. On to other news today. There seem to be conflicting reports whether the virus has aerosol transmission. And due to there being conflicting reports, I'm not going to talk about this in today's update, but I will research it and give you an update on that tomorrow. So there's been a new test kit for the virus developed by researchers at Tianjin University here in China, and this is suggesting that it can give results in about 15 minutes, so that will greatly aid in the confirmed diagnosis much quicker. Nanjing, Hangzhou have suspended marriage registration. Bit of an odd one. Can't really see that many people would want to be getting married at this particular time, especially that in some provinces things like wedding parties have been suspended, because obviously it's a congregation of people in one area, so that's really not a good thing. A 100 yuan reward for visiting hospital. So residents in one county in Hubei will be rewarded with a 1,000 yuan if they visit a hospital after noticing symptoms. I do think that's a bit odd, but obviously if there are people who are reluctant to go to hospital, it will encourage those people to go to hospital and report their symptoms and get looked at. Here in Shenzhen, all official taxi drivers have been given or offered a 3,000 RMB payment by the Shenzhen authorities. It's approximately $450 US, and although it's not a huge amount, I'm sure they will lose far more money than that in the time of this outbreak, because they probably get in very little business at all. It is a nice gesture by the authorities in Shenzhen. Okay, also something that came to our attention yesterday. I think in my video yesterday I mentioned that every time you go in and out of your apartment complex or in and out of certain shopping centres, you have to log in and out with a passport, ID card, sign in and out, etc. That has now been moved to an app. So what you do, you register on an app, and each time you go in and out somewhere, you generate a QR code, and that is scanned when you go in and out of places, your apartment blocks, some shopping centres, etc. So that is keeping a log of your movements, and this is in aid that they will tie this in with another app where they record people who have actually confirmed with the virus, so it can actually track if you've been in contact with. If they then find somebody who has the virus, they can actually look back through the records. It's like it's the use of big data really, to track who came into contact with that person who's now being confirmed to have the virus. So, although it is, I guess, seen as maybe a big brother thing, I think in this instance it's very good use of technology and big data. Something else is the cost of treatment. As a foreigner living here in Shenzhen, a memorandum has been circulated by the Shenzhen authorities that says basically if any foreigners living here need to go to hospital in relation to symptoms or actually have contracted the virus, that all the charges for the hospital treatment, the stay in hospital, whatever, will be met by the Shenzhen authorities. At this point, that's something that I know about for Shenzhen. I have no idea if that's in other cities or provinces, and I also have no idea if that applies to Chinese citizens. Maybe if somebody has more information on that, you can sort of put something down in the comments. On to more wider news now. Canada are evacuating another plane full of Canadians from Wuhan. According to the Canadian officials, there will be 236 people on board. Okay, regarding the cruise ships, the cruise ship that was quarantined in Hong Kong has now been allowed to leave after the crew members with the suspected virus were tested negative. The ship that is currently in quarantine in Japan has actually recorded more confirmed cases. There are now over 70 confirmed cases on that ship, and 14 of those are American citizen. More cases are popping up around Europe, which are connected to the meeting in the hotel in Singapore. Okay, Malaysia have extended their travel ban on visitors from some further Chinese provinces. So the travel ban now extends to people from Zhejiang and Jiangsu provinces. And finally, the US embassies here in China have suspended all regular visa services in mainland China as of Monday. There will still be emergency visa services available, but I believe you need to contact the embassy to make an appointment to organise that. So that brings me to the end of the update for today. I appreciate you all watching if you stayed to the end. As usual, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. As always, I do say we try to circulate the facts rather than speculation and rumour. If you like our channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button, and if you really want to get the news as soon as we upload a video, hit those bells. For now, as always, take care.